This is Scoop Insight. I'm Shazmin Shamsuddin. On Scoop Insight, we're getting more insights into Budget 2025 with our guests. On the far left of me, I have YB Dato, one Saiful, one Jan. He's the MP for Tasek Gelugor. He's also the Ketua Portfolio Komunikasi Ahli Parlimen, PN. Welcome. We also have Dr. Shankaran Nambiar. He's an economist.
Pleasure.
And with me right here is Mohammed Sha'ani bin Abdullah, council member for FOMCA, the Federation of Malaysian Consumers Association.
Thank you.
And of course, a regular on a lot of our podcasts here on Podaboom is Dato Zainul Arifin Mohammed Isa, CEO of Big Boom Media. Dato?
Yes.
Okay, now I think we'd like to get a feel of your thoughts on the general budget outlooks and objectives for 2025. Maybe we can start with you, Dr. Shankaran.
I don't think it'd be wrong to say it's some version of a Madani budget, if you so will. And I think the Madani, the whole framework is very much focused on reducing inequalities, on social justice, a whole range, very broad range of issues. But basically, I would think focused on the average guy on the street and making sure he has a place to stand. So I think a lot of it would be or should be focused on making sure that life is bearable, that cost of living isn't, he's not too much impacted by it. And that there have been some fiscal reforms, that there probably are going to be more, for instance, RON 95 being liberalized, etc. So I think on one hand, you want to put these big things in place, making sure that you have more fiscal space, etc. But I think also the government should be mindful, especially in this budget, to make sure that it doesn't adversely affect the average person, his cost of living. CPI doesn't reveal these things. So I think there still has got to be an eye on these things. I think other thoughts as we roll along.
As we go along. Sha'ani?
Yeah. To reduce cost of living, generally we hear about reduced cost of living by controlling prices, but it does not work. If we actually study economics, price control is only a very short-term measure. Once the traders understand how to manipulate, if it is a raw product, you cannot change anything like sugar, rice. You cannot do anything. But if it is a processed food, they can like flour. They put in, I don't know whether they put in or not. They claim vitamized flour, and they can put any price. So similarly, what is happening out there, even currently, like eggs, suddenly we have extraordinary volume of kampung chicken eggs, which is not regulated, not controlled price. Similarly, there are other products. Even there comes premium sugar, 4 ringgit. So, even the enforcement agencies are not empowered or competent to act against such kind of manipulations. So, price should not be a means of reducing cost of living. It should be other ways. Even if there is a parking, there shouldn't be any minimum fare. It should be like 15 minutes so much, so that it is not burdening the person who is parking. No, you can park, do the purchase, and go off, and you can save. If it is there 2 hours, 4 ringgit or 8 ringgit, he is stuck. And most of them are breaking the law by parking outside along the roads. But if you charge 15 cents, same rate, but at 15 minutes basis, it is not burdening them, encourage them to park, and encourage them to shop fast and go.
But that shouldn't be a policy of the budget, should it?
No, that's actually a policy. I mean, how you can enforce on the parking operators about this? You're not actually telling them to change the rate, but you're enforcing them to. I mean, there are already Malaysian standard about fair pricing. So fair pricing means not actually charging 2 hours in one go, even though they are just parking maybe less than half an hour, but they got to pay 2 hour charge. So that is actually burdening. I mean, this actually as an example. Again, there are actually goods sold in fixed volume, whereas it can be sold in per unit basis. Again, it is actually gives actually fair pricing to the customer. So we have to look at that kind of an angle rather than fixing the price. Again, similarly, you see, we have throughout the country $2 shops. I mean, they can sell any product at 2 ringgit. I mean, if in an other shop, I mean, supermarkets, they sell it per kilo basis. Maybe it's expensive, but at 2 ringgit, a poor guy can afford any item. Maybe they have to purchase frequently because maybe they are also earning by day. So it will help them. So, I mean, those are the angles we have to look into rather than actually controlling the price.
Okay. What are your thoughts, YB?
Yeah, I think I'm more marhain in this context, but I just want the simple things. I want to know more about what the government will do to make sure people who can earn money can earn more money by creating jobs, creating new opportunities, increasing the salaries, the allowances, money that they can earn. I also want to know what the government is trying to do to help those who cannot afford to help themselves. We've been talking quite a lot about how government want to centralize all the data about people who need help, need assistance. You remember the conversation about Padu and all that before. So I want to see, what is it that the government is going to do to make sure that the people who need help really gets the help that they are asking for. At the same time, what is it that the government will do to make sure the money that belongs to the people remains with the people. I'm hoping that we will not see more increases in taxation, unnecessary taxes, but there will be some taxes that maybe we'll come to this later on. But I hope we are aiming towards a more people-friendly environment and more business-friendly environment where taxation is not burdensome, but at the same time fair for everyone. So let's see. I'm very straightforward in this. I just want to see how this budget will benefit the people.
But you know what they say, right? There are only two certainties, death and taxes.
Yes.
So let's get into that actually. GST. Do you think GST should make a comeback?
Ayo, you asked me directly a question that will get me into trouble. But generally speaking, I personally prefer consumption tax over income tax. I believe if people earn an income, they should be able to keep the money that they earn. So I believe in lower and less taxation on incomes. That's a very straightforward thing. My theory has been the same over many years, which is if I earn money and you suddenly come to me and say, give me 20% of your money, you will be called a thief. But if government comes and tells you, yes, you have earned your money, your hard-earned money, but please give me 20%, it's called taxation. So, just because the government is doing it doesn't mean it's not being forced out of people. So I don't believe that income tax should go up. But consumption tax is something better, I think. Yes, we had something called GST before. It became a very hot political potato at that time. And it was eventually abolished under Pakatan Harapan 1.0. So it'll be interesting to know whether the government will reintroduce GST or not this time. If they do go along that line, it means they are admitting that before this it was all political talk.
Right.
Yeah, I was relatively a lone voice at that time, saying that I
Okay.
want consumption tax, but then the whole party said no, let's abolish it.
Yeah.
So let's see what they do this time.
Dr. Nambiar, what are your thoughts on GST and whether, it may or should make a comeback?
I think there has to be more clarity on how these things are done. For instance, the diesel subsidy that was removed. I think I'll come to GST in a moment. I think a clearer roadmap should have been designed before the tax was introduced. It should have been clear how it was going to be done. There should have been a clearer analysis, perhaps, on who would be affected and what remedies would be taken, and so on and so forth. So I think the whole tax landscape, which definitely has to change. I think there has to be clarity on that too. It'd be good for us to know when the diesel thing happened, when the RON 95 is going to be happening. What other subsidies are going to be removed? And I think that's good for consumers. They would be prepared. It's good for businesses. They would also be prepared. And I think it's good for the country, all the stakeholders. Coming more directly to GST, I'm still not very sure why the government is reluctant on GST. They have given a number of reasons. Different people in government have given different kinds of reasons. One of the reasons that is being given is that it's not the right time. I don't know when's the right time to introduce a tax. Was this the right time to liberalize diesel? I don't know. So when's the right time to reintroduce GST? No one is saying, and I think this is important, no one is saying that GST is bad. I don't think the Prime Minister himself has said that. I think almost all the tax consultants that I've been reading their comments, none of them has said it's bad. World Bank, IMF, not that we have to go by what they say, but neither have they. And I think in different ways they've been encouraging it. And I think in the Ministry of Finance's own publication, I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's Fiscal Outlook or something of the sort. They actually do have a comparison of GST, SST, etc. And there are lots of merits in introducing the GST. So obviously the people, the thinkers in MOF are aware of what's good, what's bad. It's very clear to them. And is it one of the reasons, another one of the reasons that's being given is that it's GST is regressive. But then perhaps so is SST.
So, Shazmin, if I may, Dr. Nambiar's question on the diesel and petrol, I think one of the reasons why they don't announce, because they were thinking somebody will start hoarding. One, they say if the diesel is going to be implemented, or RON 95 will be implemented in December. So there'll be people who are hoarding, not the guys filling up the tank, but the businesses who are having these skid tanks, and they are the ones. So that's all the reason for that, the not announcing it supposed to be. But I think we should be able to sense when it's coming. But on the GST consumption tax, I think I agree with YB. It's the fairest tax. It's the fairest tax. You use, you pay. That's the basis of that. And I think the GST, when it was announced in 2015, I think, when it was implemented, the idea was at the end of the day, it will gradually come with a lowering of the income tax. It was supposed to be. But GST comes in and then lowering the income tax. But obviously, GST was short-lived. So that part did not happen. I think the consumption tax, I think, is the fairest tax of all. I mean, nobody likes to pay tax. But if you consume, you probably have to pay lah. I think that's the most fairest of all, other than like just like
Dato,
toll road.
like you're saying, I mean, I think you could play around with GST. I mean,
Yeah.
like you say, reduce the income
Yeah.
tax. You can give handouts, cash handouts to.
That was what BRIM
the-
was.
Yeah,
That was BRIM.
exactly.
The GST
Exactly.
people who got BRIM, actually the studies show they receive they paid less in GST than the BRIM they receive in a year. So there was a study by the Ministry of Finance. Then they were getting like maybe paying about 50 60 ringgit a month on GST for the average consumer, but they're getting BRIM much more than that over a period.
But you see, the challenge with that is it's being done on piecemeal basis.
Yes, yeah.
What we really need in this country, I've been saying this for so many years now, is a complete reform of the taxation and the welfare system. And it needs to be done together, so that if you introduce a tax on this particular area, you can help people who are affected, or people who can't afford to live the life that they're supposed to be living, by giving them direct assistance. We need a proper welfare reform. In order to fund that, we probably need a reform of the tax system.
Yeah, I think
So it needs to be done together.
Then isn't it proper? We have the data. Just now, YB was actually, creating, questioning about the PADU system. Without the data, there are many actually just lost out. I mean, even yesterday I met some orang aslis, and they are not aware of all these payments, which even I receive because I'm in that bracket. But for them, it is something unknown. So without this data, so again, welfare and also data. I mean, tax collection is is not effective. Again, coming to Dato mentioned about announcing the roadmap of removal of a subsidy. I mean, any regulated product, it is licensed. Not anybody can handle those products. They are only licensed merchants can handle the product. And their stock should be tracked. But when the local rice was missing, I mean, it shows the incompetence of the authorities. I mean, they don't know who is holding what and how much. I mean, that's basics. When you regulate, you issue license, and you want the trader to keep record. And it is, I mean, some claim it is all online. When it's online, you know who's holding how much. And there shouldn't be any this kind of hoarding. But again, now we don't find cooking oil, no? The subsidized cooking oil. Again, how can the authorities don't know who is receiving the subsidized cooking oil? So this actually, for me, is incompetence about, by the relevant agencies. So this must be tackled by our KSN, new KSN. I mean, without actually action, accountability by the agency heads, this local rice being packed, as said by Dato Maidin, he said local rice is packed as imported rice and sold at imported price. I mean, how can you allow this to go on? And we are actually pleading for funding, this and all that. And these are so blatant. As I mentioned earlier, ordinary chicken, egg is sold as kampong chicken, where I made an official report with the domestic trade, and the investigator visited the farm and found it is reared as a normal chicken, not as a kampong chicken. And there was no action. So these are the things actually bleeding the economy. People are profiting, and we are fighting to find ways to help the consumer.
I think, but a lot of the issues here, I think, when you talk about cost, maintaining cost of living, there is a cost to maintaining cost of living. How to help? But there's a cost to it. You just can't the prices and to help people. There is a cost to helping people. So that's where the consumption tax component comes in. It's not a question of you have to do this, but there's cost to it. Cost to helping people, cost to, like you say, welfare. There is cost to it. Now, the cost component is an issue here because government punya revenue is severely affected when they dismiss the GST. So that's the consumption tax lah. So that's where the conversation is.
Yeah, but so I'll give you a simple example here. I think there's a very, 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 very low hanging fruit that can be tackled. At the beginning, at the starting just now, you mentioned about sin taxes.
Yeah.
When you say there's a cost to maintaining or reducing the cost of living, you're right. The cost is needed. You know, basically, government needs money to help people lah. And in order to do that, there might be some need to increase taxation. And the lowest hanging fruit that we have is sin taxes.
Nobody complain.
Yeah, nobody will complain, and it's a sin anyway.
And gambling.
Yes.
Go after it.
Yes, but if we look at the history or we look at the past few years, we haven't seen any significant increase in the sin taxes. Let's focus on one thing. Say, for example, on tobacco. I've been focusing on this tobacco control issue for quite some time. There was a time, I can't remember when was last time cigarette tax was increased.
2015.
Many years ago. 2015.
Ago.
And at that time, it was raised quite significantly, right? If I remember correctly. There was a time, I can't remember exactly what year that was, but it was increased significantly. It helped the government to raise funds. But the challenge at that time is, by doing it so sudden and so steep, the increase, the unintended consequence of that action by the government is the increase as well of illicit cigarettes.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you want to have a low-hanging fruit, if you want to benefit from harvesting the low-hanging fruit, let's increase. Let's say, for example, cigarette tax. I don't know, increase it by a reasonable amount, 2, 3, 4% this time. But introduce it at a regular level. So don't increase it by like 40% in one go and wait another 10 years before you increase it. Why not announce in this budget that every 2 years there'll be an increase of 3% on cigarette on taxes? Cigarette on taxes. Taxes on cigarettes. Terbalik pula ayatnya. Let's announce that this time so that there's predictability in the business environment. The companies will know how to plan, and the government can get the money that they need in order to help the people. I think that's a very low hanging fruit. Why is it not done? It will also help improve health of people in the country as well.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to a point that one Saiful made just now, which is, why do you need taxes? You need taxes because you want to improve the welfare. Like you said, there's a cost to it. So you need to have a revenue. And our tax revenue hasn't been good. At one point, I'm not sure, it's 97 or something. Our tax revenue to GDP was about 20%.
Yeah.
Now it's come down to 12.
Yep.
And 12 is what happens in lower income countries. So that's not tenable, obviously. So I think you have to plan such that you know how, and you need this very comprehensive tax reform. Not think about GST today, abolish it, and then be reluctant to introduce it, maybe because
Political will.
Yeah, political will is lacking or whatever, and then think about along the line you pick one particular item to impose your sin tax. I think it has to be comprehensive, and as YB's mentioned, alongside you have to think about what exactly are you going to do from a welfare perspective, your social safety nets, your expenditure on healthcare, which I think is dreadful, and the rest of it.
So I'd like to correct the argument by YB that increase in tax and increase in the tobacco price, will encourage smuggling. And there is already many studies, including a World Bank study, which says, this is actually the narrative by the industry. They want to lobby against any increase in tobacco tax, and they frighten the policymakers, you increase the price, smuggling will go up. That is actually the role of the government enforcement agency to prevent any smuggling. People don't understand, before all anything, every tobacco company knows who is selling cigarette before the licensing of the cigarette. Only last year they enforced licensing of all retail cigarette. Before that, nobody knows who is selling, where they are selling, how much they're selling. Except the tobacco companies. They know who is selling. Along the way, the tobacco companies know who reduced the legal cigarette and selling the illegal cigarette. The tobacco companies know, but they never acted because the illegal cigarette also comes from their same factory, and it is actually reported by World Bank because the tobacco companies are complicit because lower price products are in the market is actually advantage for them so that their consumers getting cheaper product. So, but they have a narrative to frighten the policymakers or increase the price, smuggling go up. But the study shows no. All over the world, price increase reduces consumption. So it is part of the tobacco control measure adopted by all countries except Malaysia. 10 years, they never increase the tax. So, okay, yes, the last year before they stopped increasing, of course, there was a conversion of many types of taxes. It was, the previous year was 28 cents per stick. On 2015, it went up to 40 cents per stick. Yeah, it was a jump and they caught on it, and for past 10 years, there was no revision. Of course, there should be any, if there is any increase in pricing or taxation, it should be announced ahead. Even minimum salary, you should put it 10-year roadmap so that the employer will know every year budget for it. It cannot be every now and then the minister ordering for the council to meet, setting a minimum price, then the next year they have to look for money. If you set a long-term policy, the employers cannot complain. They know it's already in the law. They have to account for the increase in whatever tax or minimum salary. You want to raise the floor, announce it for the next 20 years or 10 years. So it will work. If you are ad hoc announce this kind of measures, it's actually a shock to the industry or any business.
I think that's confirm what the YB said. You want to raise the tax, give a long-term plan.
Yeah.
So
have like a tax calendar.
Yeah, tax calendar. That's very good.
Make it regular, make it known, publish it in advance.
Yeah.
Tadi Shani, I was just giving the example, tak specific pun. But I think I like the idea of what you said just now. The taxes on sinful items, is that what we call it? I don't know if that's the right term. The taxes on cigarettes lah, alcohol and all that, they should go up. And they should go up regularly, so that there's predictability, and at the same time it will help us in our campaign to control usage of tobacco in the country. Just publish it earlier. So I'm hoping this year, we're talking about this coming budget speech, I'm hoping to see a vision of how we're going to move forward, not just next year, but hopefully on this particular item, let's have a calendar. Maybe over the next 10 years, every 2 years, this much should be increased.
I think should apply also to...
Or every year, whatever it is.
Also to maybe fuel subsidy, can have, could apply to whatever subsidy. I think at the end of the day, I think where we would like to see the government acting transparency, I think in the sense of whether higher taxes increase results in smuggling or illicit cigarette, whether it does or not is beside the point. I think the point is here where taxation is more structured, and especially when it comes to consumption taxes. Consumption taxes.
But I think the word you're looking for just now, you're being very diplomatic lah. You're saying that we want to see it being done transparently. I think let me be less diplomatic here. I want to see the government behave in a more competent way. I want to see some
professional,
competent government in place where they outline a long-term vision and not just short-term. Budget 2025. it's not supposed to be just about 2025. It's supposed to be about outlining a vision for the future, maybe 3, 4, 5 years at the very least. Then we will see, a plan on taxation, a plan on the welfare system, whether we're going to have GST or not, whether we're going to increase minimum wage or not. What is
it's going to cost more? No?
whether cigarettes are going to cost more or not, or whatever else lah. We're focusing too much on cigarettes here, I think. But we want to have some predictability. In order to do that, we need to have a competent government in place. And I hope to see that. That's me being diplomatic.
That's you being a politician.
Me being less diplomatic, I would say it'll be hopeless for you to hope that to happen lah. Let's not have that here.
I think talking about sin taxes, etc., the president of CAP had an interesting suggestion. He said that there should be taxes on a variety of items because obesity is becoming a problem here, and there should be taxes on
sugar.
snacks, etc., etc. Chocolates, of course, sugar. Some of the items I'm not really sure. If there should be a tax, for instance. I think he mentioned noodles. I know it's not a very healthy product.
Only 18 people.
I mean, for health basis, we cannot give taxing individual item. It should be the sugar means sugar, but it's so sensitive. You want to raise the sugar price. So, but why we are actually so hesitant to follow EU or the Singapore style? All processed food, you have traffic light labeling. Already no sugar, fat, and salt. Either green, amber, or red. So when all red, they are not going to buy. So meaning, consumers enforce the formula. It works in Singapore, in EU. And the manufacturers has to cater to the consumers. There no need to be no law to even tax the sugar, but it works. The formulation is actually you label the content, and it works. But because of again, FOMCA was fighting for that traffic labeling in 20 years ago, and government fell for industry lobby. Now we are facing obesity, and we are having higher healthcare costs. So the policymakers has to be very professional about it. Now, the developed countries already are doing certain ways without actually complicating taxation and all that. It's labeling, very effective.
Well, I guess that's a lot of food for thought. Sugar, no sugar, and syntax all included. We look forward to Budget 2025 coming up in October. I thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today on this discussion. It's been enlightening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And this has been Scoop Insight.